Ladies and gentlemen, gentlemen and ladies, ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to you live and direct. It's just by the time you listen to this, we ain't gonna be live no more. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I just need to check to make sure it's picking up my voice because I hit the mute button on my mic earlier. And so because I hit the mute button on my mic, just had to make sure I wasn't just talking into thin air. Ladies and gentlemen, I want y'all to pay attention because there's a lot of confusion out there. So let me help you out. And I do think you need to know this information. Ladies and gentlemen, what you all need to pay attention to is this is Presidential Proclamation 2070. We're going to cover two proclamations. Now, this was done by Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Okay? Again, he's relying on the Trading with the Enemy Act. Okay, it says, whereas on March 9, 1933, I issued a proclamation continuing the terms and conditions of said proclamation of March 6, 1933. That was 2040. So you guys need to understand, he continued his own proclamation, and so did Congress. We'll talk about it in a second. Because a lot of you are going to take my videos without doing your research, and you're going to think you did research, but you hadn't done research. What you all need to do is understand this is a puzzle. So we're going to start with the first item, the Presidential Proclamation 2039. You can write it down if you want. Put your notes together. Presidential Proclamation 2039. It's not even a long read. So, Presidential Proclamation 2039, Banking Holiday Proclamation. Presidential Proclamation 2040 continues the stupidity. Okay, I believe it was December 10th. Was it March 10th, 2040? March 10th, 1933. Okay. No, Presidential Proclamation 2040, March 9, 1933. Apologize. No, we're going to continue. After that one was 2070. These directly affect Presidential Proclamation 2039. After that, 2725. That was done by Harry S. Truman. We're going to cover both 2040 or 2070 and 2725. I'm going to cover both of those today because the information in it is very important. Whereas the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation has acted upon all applications. You got to make an application if you're a banking institution. That's what they say right here. It's right here. You must make an application to permit any banking institution, not a member of the Federal Reserve System, to perform any and all the usual banking functions except as otherwise provided. Pay attention, you all. You have to do an application. I issued an executive order authorizing the appropriate authority being state or federal, having immediate supervision of banking institutions in each state and at any place subject to the jurisdiction of the United States to permit any banking institution, not a member of the Federal Reserve System, to perform any and all of its usual banking functions except as otherwise provided. You don't have to be licensed. We'll talk about that in a second. Let's finish, shall we? Whereas it is now appropriate that the banking authority in each state and in any place subject to the jurisdiction of the United States should have and exercise sole responsibility, not jurisdiction, sole responsibility and control over, now we got a jurisdictional point. Pay attention. Banking institutions not members of the Federal Reserve System. Hold on. You think that you need to now apply for application under your state's banking regulations. Y'all just need to pay attention and hold on. Now, I, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, President of the United States, in order to assure that the banking authority in each state and in any place subject to the jurisdiction of the United States shall have and exercise the sole responsibility for and control over banking institutions which are not subject to the Federal Reserve System. Oh, my stars. Now, hold on. Control over all the banking institutions which are not subject to the Federal Reserve System. To hereby proclaim, order, direct, and declare. So it's a proclamation, it's an order, it's a directive, and it's a declaration that the proclamations of March 6, 1933, March 9, 1933, and the executive order of March 10, 1933, and all orders and regulations pursuant thereto are amended. Uh-oh, there's an amendment taking place. Hold on, what's the amendment? Y'all want to find out? Because I want to find out. Whew. Effective the first day of January 1934 to exclude from their scope. Who is excluding from what scope? All of those state-run banking institutions in the Federal Reserve System. Banking institutions which are not members of the Federal Reserve System. They don't have any authority, no jurisdiction over banking institutions such as yourself. To exclude from their scope. A preview. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Banking institutions which are not members of the Federal Reserve System, provided, however, that no such banking institution, that means you all, shall pay out any gold coin, gold bullion, or gold certificate except as authorized by the Secretary of the Treasury, nor allow the withdrawal of any currency for hoarding or engage in any transaction of foreign exchange except such as has been the undertaking for legitimate and normal business requirements, for reasonable travel, and other personal requirements for the fulfillment of contracts entered into prior to March 6, 1933. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it says engage in or transact in any foreign exchange subject or except such as may be undertaken for legitimate normal business requirements for reasonable travel. Now, this is where he sets forth his opinion and he sets forth his proclamation on that day. So we have that. But that's not the reason for this video. Look, this is his proclamation right here. I'll put this document up online later today. It has the links where you can find the proclamation, but we're going to talk about Harry S. Truman. This is, again, as we told you, 2725, amending proclamations of March 6 and March 9, 1933, and the executive order of March 10, 1933. Yep, sorry, Mr. Roosevelt, but you're dead now. We're going to just take and undo everything you did. Nope, that's not what he was doing. I want you to pay attention and let you see how the banks had their hands in this too, but it works out for your benefit, so pay attention. To exclude from their scope member banks of the Federal Reserve System. Man, ain't that a shame? Now look, the phrase is exclude from their scope. That's your key phrase. Get an understanding of it. A proclamation. Whereas on March 10th, sorry, there's a song, think they're called As Yet, and I've never, ever, ever liked this song. I thought this song was horrible. The I Swear song. And I swear by the moon and the stars up above. Can't stand the song, people. All right, let's continue. Whereas on March 10, 1933, the President of the United States, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, my predecessor, in pursuance to the program to permit resumption of banking operations following the Banking Holiday Proclamation of 2039, of March 6 and number 2040, see Presidential Proclamation 2040, of March 9th, respectively. What did they do, respectively? Issued Executive Order 6073, which, among other things, authorized Secretary of the Treasury to permit any membered bank of the Federal Reserve System and any other banking institution organized under the laws of the United States. Presidential Proclamation is a law. And it goes going hand in hand with March the 1933 to perform any and all of their usual banking functions except as otherwise prohibited. And whereas on December 30th, 1933, the President of the United States issued Proclamation 2070, which excluded from their scope of the said proclamation of March 7th and March 9th, 1933, and of Executive Order March 10th, 1933, all banking institutions which are not members of the Federal Reserve System. See, it was governing them, but now excluded them. Whereas on December 30th, 1933, the Secretary of the Treasury had acted upon all requests for licensing the membered banks of the Federal Reserve System. Pay attention, these banks are excluded from being licensed. All institutions which are not part of the Federal Reserve System did not have to be licensed. Shh. Whereas on December 31st, 1945, the Secretary of the Treasury issued a general license to transact normal banking business to all banks thereafter authorized to begin business by the Comptroller of the Currency, and to all state banks thereafter admitted to membership in the Federal Reserve System, and thereby dispensed of the requirement of an individual license for each membered bank of the Federal Reserve System. Ladies and gentlemen, you do not have to be licensed. See, this applies to the banks because you were excluded from the scope. Okay? Just that simple. It says, look, which excluded from their scope of said proclamations of those dates all banking institutions, you, as defined in those proclamations, because that's where banking institution was defined in the proclamation. Okay? Whew. Now, let's continue, okay? Whereas it is no longer necessary or in the instrument or in the interest of government internal management for the Secretary to license the transactions of normal banking business. See, they don't have to do any more licensing of transactions of normal banking business. Well, what about the Patriot Act? Exactly. Ain't that an interesting thing? Now, I, Harry S. Truman, President of the United States of America, acting under by virtue of the authority vested in me under Section 5B of the Trading with the Enemy Act. Look at that. He actually tells you he's operating under the Trading with the Enemy Act, a military act of October 6, 1917, and 40 Stat 415. As amended in Section 4 of the March 9, 1933, 48 Stat 2, by virtue of all other authority vested in me, do hereby, in the interest of internal management of government, proclaim, order, and direct, and declare that the said proclamations of March 6th and March 9th and Executive Order March 10th, as amended, are further amended, meaning keeping them in place and in force, to exclude from their scope banking institutions which are members of the Federal Reserve System, provided, however, that no banking institution shall pay out any gold coin, gold bullion, or gold certificates, except as authorized by the Secretary of Treasury, or allow the withdrawal of any currency for hoarding. This proclamation shall become effective March 15, 1947. Ladies and gentlemen, we told you that these banking institutions, because anybody who engages in any business of banking is a banking institution. According to Presidential Proclamation 2039, go back and read it. Look at what it defines a banking institution as. You are a banking institution if you engage in a business of banking, issuing loans to family members, brothers, sisters, mothers, cousins, uncles, sisters, nephews, nieces, doesn't matter. That makes you a banker. You gave your child a piggy bank, you become a banker, and that child becomes a banker. Okay, so you're a banking institution as defined in statute. Okay? As defined in statute, as defined in Presidential Proclamation. These proclamations have not been eradicated. They have not been repealed. There is on the internet something about some federal registry repealing a presidential proclamation. A federal registry cannot repeal a presidential proclamation. The president has to repeal the proclamation. Congress has already indicated that. and when they did the Senate committee. Okay, the president has to repeal it. Well, anyway, many of you are going to go out there and you're going to try to start your own bank and you're going to think you know everything. If you don't know your foundation, how can you even have a conversation? I'm giving you the foundation. I'm telling you where all of this comes from. Go and study these acts. Use the terms. This is your authority, ladies and gentlemen. Presidential Proclamation 2039, Presidential Proclamation 2040. The Act of March 6th and the Act of, or Proclamations of March 6th and of March 9th, 1933, and of March 10th, 1933. That's your foundation. Now, the reason why we're mentioning 2040 and we're mentioning 2070 and we're mentioning 2725 is because these document that you are not included within the scope of the regulatory portions of that. So you want to know exactly, because remember they issued a general license to everyone. And now nobody's regulated, so to speak, except for the foreigners. Sorry, this only dealt with you enemies. So what you have to do is you have to contact the Treasury, you have to contact the Federal Reserve, and you have to contact your state regulatory agency and ask them, according to Presidential Proclamation, I am a banking institution. I conduct and engage in business of banking. I need to know, how do I go about establishing my bank within this state? Now, if you are really interested, in establishing a bank and taking care of the collateral, then you're just going to have to wait for the next video, next couple of videos, and then I'll explain how you get around that. Okay, that's right, you heard me. Get around it. Not going to do it today. I'm just too tired. I am working on my stat packs, people, and this is part of the research that needed to be done for those individuals. So y'all don't come first. The stat packers come first. We are putting their stuff together. I am looking at all of the stat packs sitting off to my right, and I'm looking at the bond. We have to do a whole lot of stuff for the stat packers, but it's getting done now. So those of you who are stat packers, thank you for your patience. Everything is just about fixed, and we're double, triple checking things, and that's the problem. That's what's taking so long. Gotta go. Y'all have a Coke. Y'all have a smile. See y'all in a long while. Goodbye. Wait. What you need? She just needs a Valentine, y'all. Somebody give her a Valentine. I don't know what a Valentine is. I think that's somebody's last name. Oh well, gotta go. Take care, y'all.